for crazy from a different part of the world.
No, I don't accept that.
It's here. Good old American crazy, here it comes. Could we play clip 7, please?
Here's Cal Worthington and his dog Spot. Lay down came a heel ring. Get a hit they try to get. Mostly cow, mostly cow, mostly cow.
You know, that's a brand new way to own a new Ford car truck. It's called the lease purchase plan. This is the best way to buy a new Ford car truck, the lease purchase. It's simple. You lease for no money down, low payments. At the end of the lease, you pay a small residual balance. You own it. Look here, a brand new 85 Thunderbird, the best buy in town. A brand new 85 T-Bird, $89.95. We'll lease it. No money down, $164 a month. A brand new Mustang, $69.95. We'll lease it. No money down, $135 a month. A brand new 85 Ford and F-150 pickup, $71.95. We'll lease it. No money down, $139 a month. A brand new Bronco 2 for $99.95. Or lease it. No money down, $162 a month. Let's talk about it. Hey, call us collect. Use my nickel. Call us collect. Call Worthington Ford, Federal Way, the only way. Worthington Ford, Federal Way, open to midnight every day.
Sounds like Boomhauer.
I know. I hope you all heard that word for word. So reach for your wallet. There's a sale in my boot. Something Cal Worthington probably never said, but I dare you to prove that he didn't. Calvin Coolidge Worthington was born November 27, 1920 in a town that no longer exists called Bly, Oklahoma. He did not have an easy childhood, and his family was so poor he and his 8 siblings wore clothes made out of flour sacks. And then the Dust Bowl hit. His dad, Benjamin Franklin Worthington, they moved the family to Kilgore, Texas, and at age 13, Cal dropped out of school, which I feel like is a phrase that keeps... I'm going to drop out of school, too. And he started earning money for his family doing jobs like being the water boy in road gangs and as a cowboy. He put the boy in cowboy. At age 15, he then joined the Civilian Conservation Corps, where he blazed trails in Rocky Mountain National Park. So his life went from awful as a kid to really hard as a teenager. And then World War II hit. He enlisted in the Army Air Forces, became a captain, and Cal Worthington, the man you just saw committing animal cruelty in the name of low prices, led the first daytime flight over Nazi Berlin. And then he went on to lead some of the first daytime bombing raids on Berlin. He did 29 missions, got the Air Medal 5 times, and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. After 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan and the world was cured forever, Cal applied. He applied to be a pilot for a commercial airline, but was denied for not having a college degree. So in 1945, he wanted to buy a gas station in Corpus Christi, Texas, but he didn't have the money. But he did have an old car, so he decided to sell it to get the money. It took him 30 minutes to do that. By 1947, his gas business had failed, but he remembered that he was really good at selling his cars. So he started selling cars out of an empty lot, and he called this business Dependable Used Cars. I bombed the nuts.
I imagine he had his helmet and then the cowboy hat on top.
It was the end of Dr. Strangelove. Within a few weeks, he had already sold 5 cars, but still, business wasn't great, so he sold that dealership in 1948 to buy a load of welding rods from the war surplus in Hawaii. I have no idea what he planned to do with a bunch of welding rods, but he hedged everything on them, and to save money, he drove to LA to pick them up rather than ship them to Texas. Problem was, there was a longshoreman strike, so the rods got stuck somewhere along the way, and then when they finally arrived, they were too damaged to use. And now Cal had no money and was stuck in Los Angeles. A nightmare for a Texan. He finally managed to sell them after 2 years, and in 1950 he went back to car dealing and bought a car dealership for $2,600 called Hudson Motor Car in Huntington Park on Slauson, which was an area where a lot of Okies and Texans settled after the war. The man he bought the dealership from? A Mr. Muntz. Madman Muntz.
Never heard of him.
I don't know. Let's rewind the tape. However, Huntington Park wasn't exactly the best area to be selling cars from, so he needed something to draw attention to him. And to a guy like Cal, that could only mean one thing: country and western music. In 1959, he debuted Cal's Corral, which aired Saturday nights on either KCOP or KTLA on TV and then AM 1110 on the radio. It was a 3-hour musical variety show hosted by Sammy Masters and featured musicians like Buck Owens, Glenn Campbell, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash. Meanwhile, Cal himself started doing actual TV ads, but he broke away from the style that most commercials followed at the time, being like straightforward, hard sells, like Crazy Gideon. And instead he started doing things that were less serious and more fun. So instead of berating you to buy a car, he'd instead be standing on his head on the hood of a car, or standing upright strapped to an airplane mid-flight, all wearing a white Stetson hat. What Madman Months kind of did for crazy radio ads, Cal Worthington, or he ushered in this new crazy era of TV ads. He was also apparently the first guy to show individual cars for sale in a commercial. Like he was like, hey, look, as you heard, and it all worked. He started doing this at a time when advertising on TV was shifting from being a whole show sponsored by one product to commercials like what we have now. And Cal was taking advantage by buying up long commercial slots in the cheapest times, like during midnight movies and kids shows and Twilight Zone reruns. And TV itself was also getting huge. In 1947, there were only 400 TVs in LA. By 1967, there were 6 million TVs in LA. And they were all in my house. Not just that, this was also the right time when owning a car in LA became the most important thing in the world. So Cal struck it just like perfect timing. By 1972, broadcasting Cal's Corral was too expensive, so he focused exclusively on commercials, but he was still being beaten out by his competition with guys like Fletcher Jones and Chick Lambert working for Ralph Williams and Encino. What did they have that Cal didn't? Dogs. Fletcher Jones would be holding a puppy in his commercial saying he'd give you this puppy if you bought a car. Lambert was always with a German Shepherd named Storm, which
That's scary.
brought back memories for Cal from the war. So to make fun of these guys, in 1971, Cal released a commercial that started out with a voice yelling, "Here's Cal Worthington and his dog Spot." Then it showed Cal saying, "Howdy, I'm Cal Worthington, and this is my dog Spot. I found this little fella down at the pound, and he's so full of love." Then it revealed Spot to be a gorilla chained to the bumper of a car. And he said, "Speak, Spot," and the gorilla started screaming.
That's a crime pop film.
All of this. At the end of the ad, he said, "I can beat or match any deal that guy in the valley can offer you. What's more, my dog can lick his dog." People loved it, business tripled, and they went on to make a movie about the aftermath of this commercial called King Kong. The concept of the ads was that Cal was dumb and really thought Spot was a dog, but in each commercial it was just a different exotic animal. That's how I pronounce it.
Pescetti.
He got them from Hollywood animal wranglers. He rode a hippo. He drove a tiger around in a golf cart. He had a chimpanzee in roller skates. He had a bear in roller skates who almost mauled him. He rode Shamu, who mauled his trainer after the ad was over. He attacked the bear. He'd carry around a notepad that he'd write down commercial ideas in. The commercials were huge, but there was still one thing missing. So Sammy Masters wrote a 26-stanza song to the tune of "If You're Happy and You Know It," with the chorus being "Go See Cal." And there you go, the song that'll haunt your ride home tonight. Interesting side note, Cal Worthington built one of the first electronic advertising signs off the 405 going south. He convinced the city council to let him do it, telling them that his dog Spot would be very disappointed if they said no, which can only be seen as a threat. Cal wasn't just advertising cars, he was advertising himself, and he became a sensation. He was referred to as the friend of every insomniac in Southern California. The TV Bureau of Advertising called him probably the best-known car dealer pitchman in TV history. He was on The Tonight Show, he was in movies, TV shows. Ted Danson's character in Made in America is based on him. Soupy Sales made fun of him. He was mentioned in the book Inherent Vice. Charles Bukowski mentioned him in some writings. Frank Zappa sang about him. Graffitied on the walls at the Masked Punk Club was, "Cal Worthington was here. He's a commie." He was described as a cross between Dale Carnegie and Slim Pickens. The ads made by his personal agency, Spot Advertising, were everywhere. The Spot ads ended in the mid-'80s, but by the late 80s, they were still spending $500,000 a month on ads. As many as 100 were shown in a day. One KTLA broadcast from one night in 1984 had 47 total minutes of Cal Worthington. Not 47, 7. Not as impressive. During the oil crisis in the 70s, things were kind of rough, and he had to resort to doing traffic reports from a helicopter for radio stations in exchange for free ad time, and also
Real job, by the way.
he was also selling motorized pogo sticks for extra cash. But overall, he was doing okay. He expanded into selling Lincolns, Mercury, Mercedes-Benzes, Jeeps, Mitsubishis, Chevys. He became the top Dodge retailer in the U.S., and in 1974, he opened up his flagship Worthington Ford in Long Beach at 2950 Bellflower Boulevard. At his height, he had 29 dealerships between Houston and Anchorage, Alaska, selling $200 to $300 million worth of cars a year, was spending $12 million a year to run 50,000 commercials. He claimed to have sold 1 million cars in his career. He seemed like a good boss. He'd often keep one of the tigers in his office to scare off customers who tried to barge in and complain. But there were more than just complaints. In 1978 and 79, he was sued by California for deceptive advertising. Both cases were settled, claiming there wasn't time for disclaimers in his commercials. He was also investigated for rolling back speedometers. His dad owned all the cars, and he didn't want to make him think he was driving them. And for bait and switching people, he used to promise to eat a bug if anyone could find lower prices. Someone did and came in and tried to make him eat a bug, but he refused, so he sued him for that. He was married and divorced 4 times, once to a singer from Iceland, but not the one you're thinking of. There surprisingly is more than one. In his later years, he was still doing as many as 4 ads a day via green screen in the studio at his Big W ranch in Orland, California, that he bought from Bing Crosby, where he would spend most of his time. Cal never owned a car. He never owned a car.
It was just motorized pogo sticks.
Pogo sticks all the way. He would just borrow them from the lot when he needed one, and he didn't even like selling cars. He wanted to fly. He always wanted to fly. He seemed to really want to stop selling cars, but he was too successful to stop. He'd say that every person is better at one thing than everyone else in the world, but few of us ever discover that one thing. His one thing was selling cars. He wished it was flying.
Wow.
He was still flying. That's all. Go to college. He was still flying at age 92, just 10 days before September 8th, 2013, when he died during halftime watching football with his family. As great of a performer and showman Cal Worthington was, still ranks as one of the worst halftime shows of all time. Can we play video clip 8 now?
Here's Cal Worthington and his dog.